My name is Matthew Moreira with Allocate Realty Group, and today I'm going to talk about flipping houses. So I work with a lot of investors who buy and flip properties, and a lot of these people, they already work in construction. So I want to talk about how does that process look like when you're looking to flip a house. I feel like that one thing that people don't take into consideration is the numbers, and that a lot of times there can be wishful thinking, which could lead to a bad experience and a negative investment. So if you're gonna flip a house, you have to already kind of have the mindset and expectation that you're not going to get the first house you make an offer on. It might take 5-10 times before you get the house that makes sense. And so the way it works, for example, I find a property in an area, and let's say that the ARV or the after renovation value is $300,000. And I already have more or less an idea of how much things will cost. So we go to the house, we walk through and kind of come up with a rough estimate of what we think it could cost to rehab that house. So in this case, let's say it's $60,000. So 300,000 minus the 60,000, so we're at 240,000. Another thing that we need to take in consideration is the commissions, fees, taxes, and stuff like that when you're going to go sell the property. So in this event, let's say it's let's say 6%. So 6% would be 18,000. We subtract that from that 340, so that's going to leave us with 322. Now, of course, you want to flip a house, you want to make some money. So we got to figure out what kind of profit margin makes sense to you. So in this case, for that home value, I would say a reasonable expectation is between $30,000 and $40,000. So let's say $40,000. You subtract that from that 222 and it gives you 180. So if you want to buy this house for $300,000 and make $40,000 on it, with a little bit of cushion, you want to be offering $180,000 roughly on the property. And the thing that I see is, sometimes they'll come back and say, no, we'll only sell for 220. And the people buy the house knowing what the ARV is just because they want to purchase the house. So that's something that I see happen a lot, especially, I hate to say it, but I see a lot of times like people will buy with wholesalers, because wholesalers will have large lists of people that are able to get that multiple offer situation. So sometimes I see that happen a lot with wholesalers, people really stretching themselves on that value. Another thing that, I'll just say grinds my gears that I see with people when they rehab homes is they don't pull permits. It's very important to pull permits. Most homeowners, are going to want to look into this. Good real estate agent is going to look into this. You can go on the Polaris and pull up a property, and on the column beside it, it usually has some type of button where you can see what permits have been pulled for that property. So if it's obvious that this house has been flipped, they go to look up to see if any permits pulled. They'll see there's no permit pulled. For a lot of people, this is going to be a red flag. Now, I know a lot of people work in construction. We'll try to make the argument, well, it was a plumber that did the work, or it was a framer, an electrician. They were licensed. Didn't want to spend the extra money to pull permits. Well, the thing is even though they were done by licensed people, they still weren't inspected by the city, and a lot of people really look for that. Another thing that grinds my gears when I see people who want to flip houses is they do shoddy work, or they try to go the cheapest route. Now, you don't have to go the most expensive, but most definitely not the cheapest route. So for example, if you go in there and you can see that the cabinets are already starting to fall apart, just replace them. Just yank them out. It should be something that should be budgeted for in the very get-go. Just replace the whole thing. The cleaner the house looks after the property is done, the more easy it's going to sell. The more that everything's done properly, the more easier it's going to sell, and the more money you're going to get, the more smoother the transaction. The people that I like working the most with are the people that you can tell they really try hard to do a good job, and they're willing to make all the necessary repairs in the property. So if you're going to do it, you want to do it right. Another thing that I really like to do when flipping properties is staging the property. The reason you stage your property is so that you can define the spaces in the house, especially a lot of times when you're remodeling an older house and sometimes some of the space in the house doesn't make sense, or a smaller house and doesn't make sense. If you hire a professional stager, what they're going to be really good at is defining those spaces in a way where it's neutral. And the reason you want to keep the staging neutral is so when people walk into their house, they can imagine themselves living in there. So these are just some things that I see when flipping houses, some tips that I have when flipping houses. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out.